Jenny Yang's life ended in a haze of despair, her heart shattered by a betrayal so cruel it tore her world apart. For 50 years, she had loved Leonard with a devotion that weathered every storm: poverty, illness, the quiet ache of a childless marriage. They were the model couple, their bond a beacon to neighbors in their small, bustling town. She believed Leonard's love mirrored her own, deep and unyielding. But on the day he succumbed to illness, a woman named Evelyn appeared, her grown son at her side, clutching a marriage certificate that branded Jenny a lie. Leonard's legal wife was Evelyn. Jenny, the woman who had given her life to him, was nothing: a mistress, a live-in maid, a fool. The revelation crushed her. Evelyn inherited Leonard's modest estate, house, savings, the respect of their community, while Jenny faced ridicule, her name dragged through whispers of scandal. How could she not know? Neighbors sneered. 50 years, and she was just a placeholder. The shame was unbearable, a knife twisting in her chest. Jenny collapsed, blood staining her lips as her heart gave out. In her final moments, rage and sorrow fused into a desperate plea. If there's justice, let me make this right. Her eyes closed, the world fading to black, but her wish echoed into the cosmos, a cry that stirred an unseen force. When Jenny opened her eyes, she was not dead. The air was thick with the scent of coal and dust, the clamor of bicycles and factory whistles filling her ears. She stood frozen, staring at familiar buildings from the 1970s, their faded propaganda slogans preaching unity and progress. Her hands trembled as she touched her face, smooth, young, unmarked by decades of toil. Her heart raced. Was this a dream? Hadn't she died? The world around her was vivid, achingly real: the cobblestone street, the chatter of workers, the weight of her worn coat. She was back, impossibly, on a day seared into her memory, the day Leonard brought Evelyn and her son Ben to their home. A gruff voice snapped her from her daze. "Jenny, you all right? Looking for Leonard again?" The factory gatekeeper leaned out of his booth, his face weathered but kind. "He's out, but went to the station to pick up a woman and her kid. He said they're his brother's family and need a place to stay." Jenny's stomach churned. His brother's family, the lie that had unraveled her life. In her past, she'd believed Leonard's story without question, welcoming Evelyn with open arms. She'd given them everything, her savings, dreams, and dignity, only to learn too late that Evelyn was Leonard's faithful wife, Ben, his son. Her knees buckled, but she steadied herself against a lamppost. The gatekeeper frowned. "You sure you're okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Jenny forced a smile, her mind racing. "I'm fine, just tired." She turned away, her thoughts a storm of memory and resolve. This was no dream. A cosmic force, moved by her dying wish for justice, had granted her a second chance. She was reborn, armed with the truth of Leonard's betrayal. The pain of her past life, 50 years of deception, of being used as a pawn, burned in her chest, but it was no longer a weight. It was fire, fueling a vow. She would not be fooled again. Jenny's eyes narrowed as she gazed down the street, where Leonard would soon return with Evelyn and Ben. She'd greeted them with warmth in her past life, blind to their lies. She'd handed over ration coupons, savings, even her chance at college, all to help the widow and her child. She'd raised Ben as her own, unaware he was the fruit of Leonard's secret marriage. The humiliation of Evelyn's triumph, the community's scorn, flashed through her mind. Never again, she thought. This time she would protect herself. She would expose Leonard and Evelyn, reclaim her future, and walk away from the wreckage of their deceit. Her breath steadied, a plan forming. Leonard expected the same naive Jenny who'd sacrifice everything for him. But Jenny was dead, buried with her past life. Jenny was different, sharp, calculating, driven by a hunger for justice. She touched the coins in her pocket, the meager savings she'd scrimped for years. They were hers, not Evelyn's. Her aging and struggling parents deserved them, not Leonard's mistress. She straightened, her resolve hardening like steel. The game had begun, and she would play it on her terms. As she walked toward home, the factory whistle blared, signaling the end of a shift. Workers spilled onto the street, their laughter and chatter starkly contrasted to the storm within her. Jenny's heart pounded, not with fear, but with purpose. Leonard and Evelyn thought they held all the cards but didn't know she'd seen the deck. She was reborn, and this time, she would win. Jenny Yang stood at the edge of her small courtyard, the clamor of the factory town fading as memories of her past life flooded her mind. The truth of her 50-year marriage to Leonard, a lie woven with cruel precision, burned like a fresh wound. She had been a devoted wife, pouring her heart into their shared life, only to discover she was never his true partner. Evelyn, the woman Leonard claimed was his late brother's widow, had been his legal wife, and their son, Ben, his flesh and blood. Jenny's past life was a tapestry of sacrifice and deception, and now, reborn, she clearly saw every thread of the betrayal. In that former life, Leonard had returned from the train station with Evelyn and Ben, his face a mask of sincerity. "My brother's family," he'd said, his voice soft with feigned grief. "They've got nowhere else to go, Jenny. We need to help them settle." She'd believed him without question, her heart open to the weary woman and her quiet child. Neighbors praised Leonard's loyalty, calling him righteous for aiding his brother's kin. Jenny, proud of her husband's compassion, had nodded along, blind to the truth. She'd handed over their hard-earned savings, every yuan scraped from her factory wages, to furnish Evelyn's new home. Ration coupons for meat, fabric, and grain followed, and gifts to ease the widow's burden. Evelyn's gratitude seemed genuine, and her smile was warm as she accepted Jenny's generosity. But there were moments, fleeting, unnoticed then, that nagged at Jenny now. Evelyn's lingering glances at a co-worker, a man with sharp features who loitered near the factory gates, had carried a secretive weight. Jenny had dismissed them, too trusting to suspect. She'd even ignored the whispers among neighbors about Evelyn's late-night walks, chalking them up to a widow's restlessness. How naive she'd been, never questioning why Leonard was so quick to provide for Evelyn and why his business trips grew frequent. The sacrifices didn't end with money. When the National College entrance exams were reinstated in 1977, Jenny saw a chance to reclaim her dreams. She studied late into the night, her eyes burning from old textbooks. But Leonard, with his gentle persuasion, had other plans. "Evelyn needs this more," he'd said, his hand on hers. "Her husband saved my life once. If you take the exam for her, I'll be free of that debt. We'll be happy, Jenny, just the two of us." Blinded by love, she'd agreed, writing Evelyn's name on the answer sheet. Evelyn used Jenny's scores to enter university, landing a prestigious job at a state-owned company while Jenny stayed home, her ambitions buried. Worst of all was Ben. Unable to have children, Jenny poured her love into the boy, believing him to be her late brother-in-law's son. She cooked his meals, mended his clothes, and soothed his tantrums, treating him as her own. Leonard encouraged it, his smiles masking the truth. Ben was his son with Evelyn, a secret child raised under Jenny's roof. She'd been their maid, nanny, and fool, laboring to support a family that mocked her behind her back. Evelyn's occasional absences, her whispered conversations with that coworker, should have been clues, but Jenny's trust in Leonard was unshakable. The truth came only after Leonard's death. Evelyn arrived at his funeral, her son now a grown man with a sneer that cut like a blade. She presented the marriage certificate, its ink a final betrayal. "Evelyn said you were never his wife," her voice cold, just a servant. The neighbors' pity turned to scorn, their whispers a chorus of judgment. The model wife Jenny was a laughingstock, her 50 years of devotion reduced to a cruel jest. The pain was unbearable, her heart breaking under the weight of humiliation. She'd died clutching that truth, her last breath a cry for justice. Now, reborn, Jenny saw the deception in stark relief. Leonard's kindness had been a performance, his love a lie to keep her compliant. Evelyn's warmth was a facade, and her secret meetings with that coworker hinted at more profound betrayals. Ben, the boy she'd raised, had grown into a man who'd spat on her, calling her a pawn. The memories stoked a fire in Jenny's chest. Not despair, but defiance. She wasn't the naive girl who'd trusted unquestioningly. This time, she'd guard her heart, dreams, and future. Leonard and Evelyn thought they could play her again, but they didn't know she held the script of their lies. Jenny's hands clenched as she gazed at the horizon, where the train station lay. Leonard would return soon, Evelyn and Ben in tow, expecting the same trusting Jenny. But she was different now, sharpened by betrayal, reborn with purpose. She would unravel their deceit, expose their sins, and walk away free. The past was a scar, but it was also her weapon. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Jenny whispered, "This time, I'll win. Jenny Yang's heart pounded as she hurried through the narrow streets of her factory town, the weight of her past life's betrayal fueling each step. The 1970s sun beat down, glinting off bicycles and weathered shop signs, but her mind was sharp, focused. Leonard would soon return with Evelyn and Ben, expecting the same trusting, sacrificial Jenny who'd given everything in her previous life. But Jenny was gone, replaced by a woman armed with truth and resolve. Reborn with the chance to rewrite her fate, she refused to be their pawn again. Her first move was to protect what was hers, her savings, her dignity, her future. She reached the small apartment she shared with Leonard, its faded walls a reminder of years spent scrimping for a dream that never came. Inside, she knelt by the wooden chest beside their bed, her fingers trembling as she lifted the lid. There, hidden beneath folded clothes, were the fruits of her labor, a bundle of UN notes and ration coupons for meat, fabric, grain, and shoes. In her past life, Leonard had handed these to Evelyn without a second thought, claiming they were for his brother's family. Jenny had nodded, proud of his generosity, unaware she was funding his mistress's comfort. Not this time. She stuffed the money and coupons into her pockets, her movements swift but deliberate. Half would go to her parents, who toiled in a rural village, their backs bent from years of hardship. In her past life, she'd neglected them, pouring every resource into Leonard's lies. Now, she'd right that wrong. The rest she'd use for herself, something she'd rarely done. She locked the chest and headed to the post office, the town's bustle a blur around her. At the counter, she mailed a thick envelope to her parents, her handwriting steady. "For you, to ease your days." The clerk's nod felt like a small victory. With the remaining coupons, Jenny moved to the market, her steps lighter. She exchanged fabric coupons for 2 sturdy dresses, their bright patterns a defiance of the patched clothes she'd worn for years. Shoe coupons became a pair of leather boots, practical yet bold. At a bustling diner, she traded meat and grain coupons for a plate of steaming pork ribs, the rich aroma a stark contrast to the plain porridge of her past. As she savored each bite, she felt a spark of self-worth she'd long forgotten. These acts, small to others, were her declaration. She would no longer starve herself for Leonard's deceit. By late afternoon, Jenny returned home, her arms full of packages. The street was quiet, and the factory whistle was silent. She set her purchases down, her mind racing with what came next. Leonard would be back soon, his lies ready to ensnare her. She rehearsed her words, her tone calculated to disarm him. She'd play the part of the dutiful wife, but only to mask her plans. The door creaked open, and Leonard's voice called out, "Jenny, you here?" Her pulse quickened, but she steadied herself, stepping into the main room with a calm smile. Leonard stood by the door, his coat dusted from the train station, eyes scanning her. Behind him, Evelyn hovered, her son Ben clutching her hand. Their presence churned Jenny's stomach, but she kept her expression soft. "You're back," she said, her voice warm but measured. Leonard's gaze fell on the bags by the table. "Been shopping?" he asked, a hint of tension in his tone. Jenny nodded, lifting a dress for him to see. "I used some fabric and shoe coupons. It's been 3 years since I had anything new, and I ate pork ribs at the diner. I deserved it." Leonard's jaw tightened, his forced smile betraying his unease. In her past life, Jenny had never spent a UN without his approval, always putting him first. Her independence now was a quiet shock. "That's fine," he said, his voice strained. "But those coupons were for the household." Jenny tilted her head, her tone innocent but pointed. "Oh, Leonard, I sent the rest to my parents. They're getting old, struggling. I mailed half our savings and some grain and meat coupons. We've never sent them anything in 3 years. It was time." The air grew heavy. Leonard's face flushed, his hands clenching. "You sent the money?" he asked, his voice rising. "All of it?" Jenny nodded, her eyes wide with feigned regret. "I should have asked, but I thought you'd agree. They're family, after all." She watched his struggle, the rage he couldn't voice. The savings, over 1,000 UN, painstakingly amassed, were gone, out of his reach. He'd given them to Evelyn without a blink in her past life. Now his plans were crumbling, and Jenny relished his silent fury. Evelyn shifted, her eyes darting between them, but she said nothing, her presence a shadow of the betrayal. Ben tugged at her skirt, oblivious. Leonard forced a laugh, awkward and brittle. "It's fine, Jenny. Talk to me next time." He turned to Evelyn, gesturing her toward the neighboring apartment he'd arranged. "Let's get you settled," he said, his voice tight. As they left, Jenny's smile faded. She'd drawn first blood, seizing control of her resources and unsettling Leonard's expectations. The game was on, and she was no longer the prey. Jenny Yang stood in the dim light of her apartment's kitchen, stirring a pot of cornmeal porridge with deliberate calm. The scent of boiled grains filled the air, starkly contrasting the lavish meals she'd once prepared for Evelyn in her past life. Outside, the 1970s factory town hummed with evening chatter, but inside her mind was a battlefield. Leonard had returned with Evelyn and Ben, expecting the same submissive Jenny to cater to their every need. Her swift move to secure her savings had rattled him, and now she'd serve this meager meal to test their reactions, her heart steady with purpose. Reborn with the truth of their betrayal, Jenny played a dangerous game, and every step had to be precise. The door creaked, and Leonard entered, his face weary from settling Evelyn next door. Evelyn followed, her son Ben clinging to her skirt, her eyes scanning the room with caution and entitlement. Jenny noted the flicker of calculation in Evelyn's gaze, a sharpness that hadn't been there in her past life's early days. "Dinner's ready," Jenny said, her voice soft but firm, setting bowls of porridge, stir-fried greens, and pickled radish on the table. Leonard's brow furrowed, his expectation of meat and rice clear, but he said nothing, sitting heavily. Evelyn, however, couldn't hide her disdain. "This is it?" Evelyn snapped, her tone sharp as she stared at the plain spread. "Cornmeal porridge? You should at least manage something decent." Jenny met her gaze, her smile apologetic but unyielding. "I was out late, Comrade Goo. The stores were empty and we're short on coupons. Leonard will get you something better tomorrow." Evelyn's face darkened, her lips parting as if to retort, but she stopped, her eyes narrowing. "It wasn't like this before," she muttered, almost to herself, the words slipping out like a confession. Jenny's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral, ladling porridge into Ben's bowl. The cryptic remark hung in the air, unnoticed by Leonard, who sighed and poked at his food. Evelyn stormed off with Ben, refusing to eat, and Leonard followed, muttering about cleaning their apartment. Alone, Jenny cleaned the table, her mind racing. It wasn't like this before. Evelyn's words weren't a casual complaint. They carried the weight of memory, of a life already lived. In her past life, Jenny had slaved to make Evelyn's home spotless, her meals rich with scarce ingredients. Evelyn's slip suggested she knew that life expected it again. Could she, too, be reborn? The thought chilled Jenny, but it also sharpened her resolve. She slipped out, moving silently to the neighboring apartment's wall, her ear pressed against the thin wood. Leonard's voice was low, complaining about the cleaning, but Evelyn's cut through, sharp and urgent. "She's different, Leonard. The money, the food. She's not the same Jenny. I know why. I died too after you. The shame, the guilt, it broke me. I woke up here like her, and I won't lose what I had." Jenny's breath caught. Evelyn was reborn, her words confirming it. "I want the life we built," Evelyn continued, her voice fierce. "The university, the job, the comfort. She's trying to take it from us." Leonard's reply was gruff. "Calm down. She's still Jenny, naive, pliable. We'll keep her in line." Evelyn laughed bitterly. "You don't see it. She's playing us just like I'm playing her. She knows, Leonard. We have to be careful." Jenny stepped back, her heart pounding. Evelyn's rebirth wasn't just a twist, it was a threat. In her past life, Evelyn had been cunning, easily manipulating Jenny. Now, armed with memories of her future triumphs, she was driven by greed to reclaim her privileged life. Jenny faced a betrayer and a rival who shared her knowledge of what was to come. Returning to her apartment, Jenny sat in the dark, the weight of this revelation settling in. Evelyn's motives were clear. She wanted the university degree, the state job, the social standing she'd stolen, but her rebirth made her dangerous. She'd watched Jenny's every move, suspecting her secret. Jenny's plan to expose their affair and escape via the college exam was now a high-stakes duel. One misstep could tip Evelyn off, letting her counter Jenny's moves. Yet the challenge ignited something in Jenny, a fierce determination to outwit her foe. The next morning, Evelyn appeared at Jenny's door, her forced smile, and Ben trailed behind. "About last night," she said, her tone sugary but her eyes cold. "I was harsh. This transition's hard, you know. Leonard's been so kind, but you're different lately. Sending money to your parents, cooking that." porridge. It's not like you." She paused, probing. Jenny's heart raced, but she matched Evelyn's smile. "Different? I want to do right by my family. You understand, being a mother. I'm the same Jenny, Comrade Goo, just trying to help." Evelyn's gaze lingered, searching for cracks, but Jenny held firm, her voice steady. "Leonard said you're staying next door. If you need anything, ask. We're here for you." Evelyn nodded, her smile tightening, and left, her suspicion unquelled. Jenny closed the door, her calm facade dropping. Evelyn knew or suspected Jenny's rebirth. This wasn't just a fight for freedom, but a battle of wits against an enemy who saw the same future. Jenny's resolve hardened. She'd play the naive wife, but beneath it, she'd weave a trap Evelyn couldn't escape. Jenny Yang moved through her apartment with quiet purpose, the 1970s evening light casting long shadows across the worn floorboards. The revelation of Evelyn's rebirth had sharpened her senses, turning every glance and word into a potential trap. Leonard and Evelyn, cunning in their own right, believed they could manipulate her as they had in her past life. But Jenny, reborn with the scars of betrayal, was no longer their pawn. Her actions, securing her savings, serving plain meals, and deflecting Evelyn's suspicions, had unsettled them. Now she needed to understand Leonard's game. Why did he keep her close despite his secret marriage to Evelyn? The answer, she suspected, lay in his ambition, and she intended to uncover it. The factory town outside buzzed with the clatter of bicycles and workers' chatter, but Jenny's focus was inward. Leonard had returned from settling Evelyn next door, his face a mask of forced calm. He sat at the table, sipping tea, his eyes flicking to her as she tidied the kitchen. "You're quiet tonight, Jenny," he said, his tone probing. She offered a faint smile, keeping her voice soft. "Just tired, Leonard. It's been a busy day." She watched him, noting the tension in his shoulders. He was testing her, gauging whether her recent defiance, sending money to her parents, using coupons for herself, was a fluke or a threat. Jenny needed more than guesses. In her past life, Leonard's refusal to divorce her, even after Evelyn's proper role was revealed, had puzzled her. He'd clung to their marriage, feigning loyalty, while secretly building a life with Evelyn. Was it guilt? Control? She doubted he had the heart for either. Her rebirth had given her clarity. Leonard was a man of calculation, his every move tied to gain. As an office engineer, he was climbing the ranks, his sights set on chief engineer, a position that demanded skill and a spotless reputation. Jenny's role as the dutiful wife, she realized, might be his shield. To confirm her suspicions, Jenny waited until night fell, the town quieting under a starless sky. Leonard thought her asleep, his footsteps soft as he slipped out. She followed, her bare feet silent on the cool ground, trailing him to Evelyn's apartment next door. The courtyard was empty, the air thick with coal dust. She pressed herself against the wall, her ear to the thin wooden panel, straining to hear. Leonard's voice was low, tinged with frustration. "She's acting strange, Evelyn. The money, the coupons, she's never done that before. You sure she's not on to us?" Evelyn's reply was sharp, laced with her reborn knowledge. "I told you she's like me. She knows, Leonard. We need to keep her in line or she'll ruin everything." Leonard sighed, his voice hardening. "Relax. Jenny's my shield. A stable marriage looks good to the bosses. They're watching me for the chief engineer post. Divorce or scandal would kill my chances. You're my heart, Evelyn, but we need her for now. Once I'm promoted, we'll deal with her." Jenny's blood ran cold, and her suspicions were confirmed. Leonard wasn't driven by love or loyalty. He was using her to polish his image, a prop for his career. Evelyn's tone softened, cajoling. "And after? You'll marry me properly, like last time? Ben and I deserve that life." Leonard hesitated, then muttered, "Of course. Just keep quiet about us. No slip-ups." Their voices dropped to murmurs, but Jenny had heard enough. She slipped back to her apartment, her heart pounding with rage and clarity. Leonard's motives were bare. He needed her respectability to climb the factory's ladder. His ambition outweighed any decency. She'd been his unwitting accomplice in her past life, her sacrifices paving his path to success. Now she'd turn his game against him. The next morning, Leonard was all smiles, his engineer's uniform crisp as he prepared for work. "Jenny, about yesterday," he said, his tone light but calculated. "I was harsh about the money. You did right by your parents. Let's plan better next time." Jenny nodded, her face a mask of compliance. Of course, Leonard. I'll talk to you first. Inside, she sneered. He thought he could pacify her, keep her in her place. But his confession had given her power. She'd play the perfect wife, lulling him into complacency, while plotting to shatter his precious reputation. As Leonard left, Evelyn appeared, her eyes wary but her smile forced. "Jenny, can we talk?" she asked, stepping inside. Jenny braced herself, sensing another test. "Sure, Comrade Goo. What's on your mind?" Evelyn's gaze was piercing. "You've been generous, helping us settle." But Leonard stretched thin, supporting everyone. His parents, ours, now yours. You understand how hard that is, don't you? Jenny saw the trap. Evelyn was probing, trying to gauge her intentions. "I do," Jenny said, her voice gentle. "Leonard's so kind-hearted. I'll make sure we manage for all of us." Evelyn's smile tightened, her suspicion unquelled, but she nodded and left. Jenny exhaled, her mind racing. Leonard's ambition and Evelyn's greed were her leverage. She'd let them think they controlled her, while she wove a plan to expose their affair and escape via the college exam. The stakes were higher now. Evelyn's rebirth meant she'd watch Jenny closely, and Leonard's career obsession made him ruthless. But Jenny's resolve burned brighter. She'd dismantle their lies, not just for revenge, but to reclaim her life. The factory whistle sounded, and Jenny straightened, ready for the next move. Jenny Yang walked through the bustling streets of her 1970s factory town, the morning air sharp with coal dust and the clatter of bicycles. Her heart thrummed with purpose, each step a calculated move in the war against Leonard and Evelyn. Reborn with the truth of their betrayal, she'd already seized her savings and deflected Evelyn's suspicions, learning Leonard's cynical motive. He needed her as a respectable wife to secure his chief engineer promotion. Evelyn, also reborn, was a cunning rival, watching Jenny's every move. Now Jenny would strike at their weakest point, their social standing, using the town's gossip mill to unravel their lies. The opportunity came at dawn, when Evelyn appeared at Jenny's door, holding a bag of steaming buns and soy milk, her son Ben trailing behind. Her smile was smug, her eyes glinting with challenge. "Morning, Jenny," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Leonard bought these for me and Ben. Fresh buns and fried dough are better than that pig slop you eat?" She waved the bag, flaunting Leonard's favoritism. Jenny's blood boiled, but she saw the opening. She'd swallowed such insults in her past life, too naive to fight back. Now she'd turn Evelyn's arrogance against her. Without a word, Jenny snatched the bag, her movement swift. Evelyn gasped, her face flushing. "Give that back! Leonard got it for us, not you!" Jenny stepped into the street, raising her voice to carry across the crowded morning rush. "Comrade Goo? I'm Leonard's wife. If he bought breakfast, why's it for you and not me?" Heads turned, workers pausing their commute to watch. Jenny's tone was laced with hurt, her eyes wide with feigned betrayal. 3 years married and I get porridge while you get buns? "What does that make me?" Evelyn stammered, her confidence crumbling under the growing crowd's scrutiny. "It's not like that. Leonard's just helping us, his brother's family." Jenny pressed forward, her voice rising. "Helping? Dragging him away at night, keeping him from home, now flaunting his gifts in my face. I've been loyal, but you act like you're his wife. Let everyone judge who deserves these buns, the wife or the widow." The crowd murmured, whispers of freeloader and shameless rippling through. Evelyn's face burned red, her sharp tongue silenced by the public gaze. Jenny tossed the bag back, her point made. "Keep your buns, Comrade Goo, but don't wave them at me like I'm nothing." She turned, her heart racing with grim satisfaction, leaving Evelyn to face the crowd's judgment. By noon, the neighborhood was abuzz. Aunties at the market swapped tales of Evelyn's audacity, their voices loud enough for Jenny to overhear as she passed. "That widow's leeching off Leonard, eating better than his wife," one said. "Poor Jenny, who is so kind, and he's neglecting her for that woman," another clucked. The gossip spread like wildfire, each retelling more damning. Jenny fueled the flames subtly. At the factory canteen, she sighed to a group of co-workers, her tone heavy with resignation. "Leonard's so generous in helping Comrade Goo and her son. He even bought them breakfast, though we've no coupons left for ourselves." Her words, carefully chosen, sparked outrage. "What kind of man prioritizes a stranger over his wife?" a worker muttered. "And that Evelyn, acting entitled, she's trouble," another added. Jenny nodded, her face a mask of sorrow, inwardly reveling in the growing scandal. The town's moral code, rigid in its expectations of loyalty, was turning against Leonard and Evelyn. By evening, the effects were apparent. Leonard returned home, his face stormy, his engineer's uniform rumpled. "Jenny, what's this I hear about you yelling at Evelyn?" he demanded, his voice tight. She met his gaze, her expression innocent. "Yelling? She came to me with buns you bought her, called my porridge pig slop. I was hurt, Leonard. Shouldn't I, your wife, come first?" His jaw clenched, but he couldn't argue. She'd framed it as a wife's rightful grievance. "It's a misunderstanding," he muttered. "I'll talk to her." As he left, Jenny's lips curved into a faint smile. Leonard's promotion hinged on his reputation, and the gossip was a crack in his facade. With her reborn ambition to reclaim her past life's comforts, Evelyn was now a liability, her arrogance drawing eyes. The town's judgment was a weapon, and Jenny wielded it precisely. She'd let the rumors fester, isolating her enemies while playing the wronged wife. The college exam loomed, her ticket to freedom, but first she'd ensure Leonard and Evelyn's fall. The factory whistle sounded, and Jenny straightened, her resolve a quiet fire. The public scorn was just the beginning. Jenny Yang sat at her small wooden desk, the flickering light of a kerosene lamp casting shadows across worn textbooks. The 1970s factory town outside her window was quiet, its streets empty under a late October sky, but her mind buzzed with purpose. Reborn with the truth of Leonard and Evelyn's betrayal, she had already outmaneuvered them, securing her savings, deflecting Evelyn's reborn suspicions, and sparking gossip that tarnished their reputations. Leonard's ambition to become chief engineer depended on her as his respectable wife, while Evelyn, also reborn, craved the privileged life she'd stolen before. Now, Jenny's path to freedom lay in the National College entrance exam, a chance to escape their grasp forever. She would play their game, but on her terms. The exam, reinstated in 1977, was weeks away, and Jenny knew its power. In her past life, she'd studied tirelessly, only to let Leonard persuade her to write Evelyn's name on the answer sheet, handing Evelyn a university degree and a prestigious job. The memory stung, her dreams sacrificed for a lie. She'd take the exam for herself this time, but Leonard and Evelyn couldn't know. Evelyn's sharp eyes, armed with reborn knowledge, watched for any sign of betrayal. Leonard, obsessed with his career, needed Jenny to be compliant. She'd have to deceive them both, a gambit that required perfect precision. To set the stage, Jenny approached her factory supervisor, her voice steady but humble. "I want to give my job to Comrade Gu," she said, referencing Evelyn. "She's raising a child alone, and Leonard feels we owe her." The supervisor nodded, unbothered, and agreed Evelyn could start the next day. The move was strategic. Quitting freed Jenny to study, while appearing to sacrifice for Evelyn lulled her enemies into complacency. Leonard was relieved, his smile tight. "That's kind of you, Jenny. It's the right thing." Though wary, Evelyn accepted the job. Her greed for stability outweighed her suspicions. With her days now her own, Jenny threw herself into preparation. She spent hours in the town's cramped bookstore, poring over math, literature, and history texts, her fingers tracing faded pages. The work was grueling, but each solved equation, each memorized poem, felt like a step toward liberation. She hid her intensity from Leonard and Evelyn, feigning fatigue when they were near. Just reading to pass the time, she'd say, closing a book if Evelyn lingered too long. Her reborn rival's glances were sharp, but Jenny's performance as the dutiful, selfless wife held firm. The announcement came in late October 1977, blared through a loudspeaker as Jenny walked home. "The National College entrance exam is restored!" Her heart surged the moment she'd awaited. Leonard and Evelyn heard it too, their eyes meeting with a shared, calculating glint. That evening, they cornered her in the apartment, their voices smooth but insistent. "Jenny, about the exam," Leonard began, his hand on her shoulder. "Evelyn needs this chance. Her husband helped me once, and if you take the test under her name, I'll be free of that debt." Evelyn nodded, her smile eager. "You're so smart, Jenny. I know you'll pass." Jenny hesitated, her face a mask of reluctance. "I don't know if I'm good enough," she said, her voice soft. "It's been years since I studied," Leonard pressed, his tone coaxing. "You can do it. Study hard, and it'll be fine." Evelyn added, "I'll handle the house, cooking, cleaning. You focus." Their confidence was palpable, rooted in their past life's success. Jenny nodded slowly, her eyes downcast. "I'll try, but if I fail, don't blame me." They assured her they wouldn't, their relief clear. Inside, Jenny smirked. They thought they'd won, but she held the actual card. The weeks flew by, Jenny's nights consumed by study, her resolve unyielding. On December 11th, 1977, she walked to the exam hall, her heart steady despite the moment's wait. Leonard and Evelyn accompanied her, their presence a reminder of the stakes. "Do well?" Leonard said, his hand squeezing her arm. Evelyn's smile was tight, her reborn knowledge making her wary. Jenny nodded, entering the hall alone. The room buzzed with nervous candidates, but she felt calm, her pen a weapon. When the answer sheet was placed before her, she paused, her past life sacrifice flashing through her mind. Evelyn's name in her handwriting, her dreams erased. With a steady hand, Jenny wrote, "Jenny Yang." The act was a rebellion, a reclaiming of her destiny. The exam was rigorous but familiar, and her preparation was thorough. She answered each question with precision, her mind clear. When she emerged, Leonard and Evelyn rushed over, their faces eager. "How'd it go?" Leonard asked. Jenny shrugged, her tone vague. "Not bad. I did my best." Evelyn's eyes searched hers, but Jenny's calm demeanor gave nothing away. "That's wonderful," Evelyn said, her excitement betraying her belief in victory. Leonard clapped her shoulder. "Let's celebrate tonight." As they walked to a restaurant, Jenny's heart soared, her secret triumph a quiet fire. Leonard and Evelyn thought they'd secured Evelyn's future, but Jenny had claimed her own. The college exam was her escape, a door to a life free of their lies. The town's gossip still simmered, weakening their social standing, and Jenny's next moves would widen that crack. For now, she played along, her smile masking the truth. She was one step closer to breaking free. The factory whistle echoed in the distance, and Jenny's resolve burned brighter than ever. Jenny Yang stood in her small apartment, the morning light filtering through cracked curtains, casting a soft glow on the 1970s factory town outside. Her heart thrummed with quiet triumph. Her college exam gambit, writing her name on the answer sheet, had secured her future, unbeknownst to Leonard and Evelyn. Reborn with the truth of their betrayal, she'd already outmaneuvered them, seizing her savings, sparking gossip that tarnished their reputations, and deflecting Evelyn's reborn suspicions. Leonard's ambition to become chief engineer relied on Jenny's image as a dutiful wife, while Evelyn, also reborn, craved her past life's privileges. Now, an unexpected ally was about to amplify the chaos. Leonard's mother, a volatile force whose temper could ignite the scandal Jenny had carefully stoked. The morning was shattered by a shrill voice echoing through the courtyard. "Jenny Yang, get out here, you lazy hen!" Leonard's mother, a wiry woman with a scowl etched deep, stormed toward the door. Her arrival was unannounced, her eyes blazing with disdain. In Jenny's past life, this woman had tormented her, blaming her infertility for every family woe. Now, Jenny saw an opportunity. She opened the door, her face a mask of meek surprise. "Mother, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft but calculated. "Wrong?" the older woman spat, jabbing a finger at Jenny. "You quit your job lying in bed like a useless lump. My son's slaving to support you, a barren woman who can't even give him a child." The courtyard filled with curious neighbors, their whispers a growing hum. Jenny's heart raced. She'd anticipated this fury but hadn't expected it so soon. She stepped back, her tone trembling with feigned hurt. "I didn't quit, Mother. Leonard gave my job to Comrade Gu, his brother's widow. He said he owed her husband a favor, and she needed it more, raising her son alone." The words hit like a spark to dry grass. Leonard's mother's face twisted, her voice rising to a screech. "Gave up your job? To some widow? And he's paying for her, too?" Jenny nodded, her eyes downcast, carefully fueling the fire. "Yes, he's been helping her with breakfast and supplies, and he's even been staying late to fix her place. I didn't want to trouble you, but we've had no money to send you because of it." She added a quiver to her voice. "I thought you'd approve, since Leonard's so kind-hearted." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, neighbors exchanging shocked glances. Leonard's mother's nose flared, her rage redirected. "Kind-hearted? He's throwing away my son's future for some freeloader? Where is she?" Jenny hesitated, then pointed reluctantly toward Evelyn's workplace at the factory. She started my job today. Please, don't make a scene. She's got a child. But her words were a calculated nudge, and Leonard's mother was already charging off, her footsteps thunderous on the cobblestones. Jenny followed at a distance, her heart pounding with grim anticipation. The factory yard was busy, workers bustling between shifts. In Jenny's old uniform, Evelyn stood at a workstation, unaware of the storm approaching. Leonard's mother burst in like a tornado, her voice cutting through the din. "You, Evelyn Goo! Can you steal my daughter-in-law's job and my son's money?" Evelyn froze, her face paling as heads turned. "Ma'am, she started, but the older woman lunged, her hands flailing. "Tramp! Leeching off my Leonard!" A slap landed hard across Evelyn's cheek, followed by a yank at her hair. The factory floor erupted in chaos, workers gathering to watch, their gasps and whispers amplifying the spectacle. Evelyn stumbled, her nose bloodied, her cries drowned by the mother's tirade. "You and your brat, living off my son's sweat. Give it back, every you in that job." Jenny limped forward, feigning distress. "Mother, please stop," she pleaded, her voice loud enough for the crowd. But her intervention was timed. Evelyn had taken enough, and the damage was done. Leonard arrived, shoving through the crowd, his face a mask of fury. "Ma, what are you doing?" he roared, pulling her away. Too late. The scandal was unstoppable. Workers whispered of Leonard's favoritism, of Evelyn's shamelessness. By evening, the story had spread through the town. Leonard, the aspiring engineer, was entangled with a widow, neglecting his wife. His promotion prospects dimmed, the factory leadership murmuring about his conduct. Evelyn, humiliated, avoided the market, her reputation in tatters. Jenny watched from the sidelines, her face somber, but her heart alight. She'd turned Leonard's mother into a weapon, her fury a public blow to her enemy's carefully crafted image. Back home, Leonard confronted her, his voice low with anger. "You told Ma about Evelyn's job?" "Why, Jenny?" She met his gaze, her tone soft but unyielding. She was upset about the money we hadn't sent her. I explained why, your help for Comrade Goo. I didn't mean to cause trouble. Leonard's jaw clenched, but he couldn't argue. She'd framed it as loyalty to his family. As he stormed out, Jenny's lips curved. The gossip was a crack in his facade, and she'd widen it. The college exam results loomed, her escape near, but first she'd let the town's judgment bury her betrayers. Jenny Yang moved through the bustling factory town, the late 1970s winter chill biting at her fingertips as she clutched her coat. The streets hummed with the clatter of bicycles and the distant wail of a factory whistle, but her mind was razor-sharp, focused on the next phase of her plan. Reborn with the truth of Leonard and Evelyn's betrayal, she had outmaneuvered them, securing her savings, sparking a public scandal with Leonard's mother's outburst, and secretly taking the college entrance exam herself. Leonard's ambition for a chief engineer post depended on her as his respectable wife, while Evelyn, also reborn, schemed to reclaim her past life's privileges. Now, a new revelation was brewing that could shatter their lives entirely. A doubt about Ben's paternity. The seed had been planted weeks earlier, in memories Jenny had overlooked in her past life. Evelyn's secretive glances at a sharp-featured co-worker, a man who lingered near the factory gates, had carried a hidden weight. Jenny had dismissed them then, too trusting to question. But her reborn clarity brought those moments into focus. Evelyn's hushed conversations and late-night walks were always brushed off as a widow's restlessness. Now, as Jenny prepared for her college results, a chance event brought those suspicions to a head, promising a weapon she hadn't anticipated. It began with a routine visit to the factory clinic, where Leonard's mother had dragged Jenny for a fertility test, her voice sharp with disdain. "Useless hen, can't even give my son a child," she'd sneered, her words echoing the torment of Jenny's past life. Jenny complied, her face meek, but her mind alert. The doctor, a kind-eyed woman, reviewed the results with a gentle nod. "You're perfectly healthy, Comrade Yang. No issues with fertility." Jenny's heart skipped. She'd heard this before, in her past life, yet she'd never conceived. "Have your husband tested?" the doctor added softly. "Infertility isn't always the woman's issue." Leonard's mother scoffed, her face twisting. "Nonsense! My son's fine!" But her quick defense faltered, her eyes darting away. Jenny filed the moment away, her suspicions stirring. Leonard had refused testing in her past life, insisting, "We don't need kids, Jenny. You're enough." She'd believed him, blaming herself. Now she wondered, Was Leonard the problem? The question lingered, unanswered, until fate dealt a sharper card. Days later, tragedy struck. Evelyn's son Ben darted into the street while chasing a stray ball under Leonard's mother's care. A truck roared through, unable to stop. The screech of brakes and a sickening thud echoed through the town. Jenny, nearby, rushed to the scene, her heart pounding not with sympathy but curiosity. Ben was rushed to the hospital, bloodied and unconscious, his small body frail on the stretcher. Evelyn collapsed, sobbing, as Leonard half carried her to the ward. Jenny followed, her presence unnoticed amid the chaos, her eyes sharp. At the hospital, a nurse's urgent call cut through the panic. "We need B-type blood for the boy. Fast! The bank's low." Leonard, pale, offered his arm. "Take mine." The nurse shook her head after a quick test. "You're type A. Won't work." Evelyn, trembling, added, "I'm type O. Can I help?" The nurse frowned. "No, B-type only." Jenny's mind raced, the discrepancy jarring. Ben had grown healthy in her past life, with no accidents revealing this clue. But now, the blood types didn't add up. Neither Leonard nor Evelyn could produce a B-type child. She recalled Evelyn's furtive glances at that co-worker, whose sharp and angular features mirrored Ben's more than Leonard's ever had. The realization hit like a spark. Ben might not be Leonard's son. Evelyn's secrecy, her past life's unexplained absences, pointed to another man. Jenny kept her face blank, her voice soft as she offered, "I'll ask around for donors." She stepped away, her heart racing with possibility. If Leonard was infertile and Ben was another's child, Evelyn's entire deception, passing Ben off as Leonard's, was a lie layered on lies. This was no mere scandal, but a weapon to dismantle their world. But Jenny held back, her reborn instincts urging caution. She needed proof, and the college results were her priority. Ben survived the surgery, but his leg was crushed, leaving him disabled. Evelyn wept, Leonard brooded, and his mother drowned in guilt, blaming herself for the accident. In her past life, Jenny felt no pity. Ben had grown cruel, sneering at her as a pawn after Leonard's death. She offered polite concern, her eyes on the future. The exam results were due soon, her ticket to freedom. This new doubt about Ben's paternity was a hidden blade, one she'd wield at the right moment. For now, she played the dutiful wife, her silence a strategy, her resolve a quiet fire in the fading winter light. Jenny Yang stood in the dim glow of her apartment, the 1970s winter night wrapping the factory town in a heavy silence. Her heart burned with a quiet fury, fueled by the truths she'd uncovered. Knowing Leonard and Evelyn's betrayal, she had outmaneuvered them, securing her savings, igniting gossip with Leonard's mother's outburst, and secretly passing the college entrance exam for herself. Leonard's ambition to become chief engineer hinged on her as his respectable wife, while Evelyn, also reborn, schemed to reclaim her past life's comforts. The doubt about Ben's paternity, sparked by his blood type and Evelyn's secretive past, was a hidden blade Jenny held close. Her college acceptance loomed, but a final act was needed to bury her enemies. The spark came unexpectedly, in a conversation overheard through the thin walls of Evelyn's apartment. Jenny had crept out, her footsteps silent on the frosty courtyard, drawn by Leonard's low voice. Inside, Leonard, Evelyn, and his mother plotted, their words a venomous sting. "Jenny will care for Ben," Leonard said, his tone cold. "He's disabled now. Evelyn can't handle it. She'll go to college and we'll have another child, a healthy one." His mother clapped gleefully. "Perfect. That barren hen's guilt will keep her obedient." Evelyn's voice was sharp. "I want your name, Leonard, not this half-life." Their plan was clear. Use Jenny as a caretaker while they built a new family, free of her. The words cut deeper than any betrayal in her past life. Jenny's hands trembled, not with fear but rage. They considered her a pawn, a tool to bear their burdens while chasing their dreams. She'd given them everything once, her savings, her ambitions, her love, only to be mocked, no more. Her college acceptance was her escape, but she wouldn't leave quietly. Leonard's career and Evelyn's reputation hung by a thread, weakened by the town's gossip. Jenny would snap that thread with a single, devastating blow. Under the cover of night, Jenny moved with purpose. She gathered firewood from the courtyard, piling it near Evelyn's window, where she knew Leonard lingered. Her reborn instincts, honed by betrayal, guided her. She struck a match, the flame flaring in the dark, and tossed it onto the pile. Smoke billowed, curling upward, and she screamed, her voice piercing the still air. "Fire! Help! There's a fire! The town awoke, neighbors spilling out with buckets, their shouts echoing. Jenny stepped back, blending into the crowd, her heart pounding with grim anticipation. The flames licked the window frame, casting an orange glow. A neighbor kicked open Evelyn's door, revealing a sight that froze the crowd. Leonard and Evelyn, caught naked, scrambling to cover themselves. Gasps rippled through the onlookers, their whispers turning to shouts. "Caught in the act!" one cried. "He's cheating right under his wife's nose!" Jenny pushed forward, her face a mask of fury, her voice breaking with calculated pain. "You filthy liars! How long have you been sneaking behind my back?" She slapped Leonard hard, his cheek reddening, then turned to Evelyn, her hand striking again. "You dare call my food pig slop while you steal my husband?" Evelyn shrieked, her eyes blazing with hatred. "You set this up, didn't you, Jenny? You bitch!" But her words drowned in the crowd's jeers. Leonard, his face swollen, stammered, "Jenny, it's not what you think." She laughed, bitter and wild. "Not what I think? You're naked with her. What else could it be?" Tears stung her eyes, not from sorrow but from the release of 2 lifetimes' rage. She clawed at Leonard, her nails drawing blood, her voice a raw scream. "You've gone too far, you bastard!" The crowd watched, enthralled as the scandal unfolded, their judgment sealing Leonard and Evelyn's fate. The fire was doused, but the damage was done. By morning, the town buzzed with the story. Leonard, the aspiring engineer, caught in an indecent affair. Evelyn, the supposed widow, exposed as his mistress. The factory leadership summoned Leonard, suspending him pending investigation. His promotion was dead, his reputation in ruins. Evelyn, still on probation at Jenny's old job, was fired, and her dreams of a state career were shattered. Neighbors shunned them, their whispers a constant hum. Disgraceful, poor Jenny, betrayed like that. Jenny stood among them, her face somber, but inside, her heart soared. She'd lit the spark that burned their lies to ash. As she walked home, the winter air sharp against her skin, Jenny felt the weight of her college acceptance in her pocket. The exam had been her secret triumph, but this public reckoning was her justice. Leonard and Evelyn, exposed and humiliated, had no path back. The doubt about Ben's paternity remained her final card, one she'd play when the moment was right. For now, she'd let the town's scorn do its work, her escape to university imminent. The factory whistle sounded, a distant echo, and Jenny's resolve burned brighter than the fire she'd set. She was almost free. Jenny Yang stood in the cold light of her apartment, the 1970s winter air seeping through the cracked windows of the factory town. Her heart thrummed with a fierce clarity, the weight of her college acceptance letter in her pocket, a promise of freedom. Reborn with the truth of Leonard and Evelyn's betrayal, she had dismantled their lives, seizing her savings, sparking a public scandal with Leonard's mother's fury, and passing the college exam herself. The fire she'd set had exposed their affair, ruining Leonard's promotion and Evelyn's job. The doubt about Ben's paternity, confirmed by his blood type, was her final weapon. Now, as the town's gossip burned hotter, Jenny prepared to unmask their deepest lies, ensuring their downfall. The morning after the fire, Leonard's mother stormed into the apartment, her face a mask of rage. "You jinx!" she shrieked, jabbing a finger at Jenny. "You've ruined my son's job, his future. What will you eat now, you barren fool?" Jenny met her gaze, her voice calm but sharp. "Ruined him? I wasn't the one caught naked with Evelyn." The older woman faltered, her eyes narrowing. Jenny seized the moment, her tone cutting. "You knew, didn't you? About Leonard and Evelyn, their child, and their marriage. You let them use me as a maid, a fool. But I know the truth now." The mother's jaw dropped, her fury giving way to shock. "Marriage? What are you talking about?" Jenny's lips curved, her words deliberate. "Leonard and I were never legally married. Evelyn is his real wife. She's got the certificate." "Ask him." The older woman's face paled, and she stormed out, her footsteps echoing toward Evelyn's apartment. Jenny followed at a distance, her heart pounding with anticipation. The confrontation was explosive. Leonard's mother screamed at him, demanding answers. He admitted the truth, his voice low with shame. Evelyn was his legal wife, their marriage registered years ago. The mother's glee was instant. "Then it's not illegal. You can keep your job." But Jenny had planned for this. Before Leonard could act on his mother's hope, she drafted a letter to the factory's disciplinary committee, her pen steady as she detailed his moral corruption, deception, exploitation, and an illicit affair. She included Evelyn's role, painting her as complicit in the betrayal. She mailed it that afternoon, knowing the committee's strict moral code would crush Leonard's career. By evening, Leonard returned, his face haggard, tears streaming as he knelt before her. "Jenny, I'm begging you," he pleaded. "Evelyn trapped me. I was drunk, she seduced me, then blackmailed me into marrying her. I love you, always have. Please, tell the committee we're the real couple. Save my job." Jenny looked down at him, his desperation pathetic. Her voice was ice. "Leonard, do you think I'm still that fool? I died because of you, spitting blood when I learned the truth. I'm reborn, just like Evelyn. I know everything, your lies, your schemes." His face went white, his voice trembling. "Reborn? No, that's impossible." She leaned closer, her eyes blazing. "And Ben? He's not yours. His blood type, B, can't come from you or Evelyn. She's been lying to you, passing off another man's child as yours." Leonard's hands shook, his world unraveling. "You're lying," he whispered, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Jenny stood, her voice steady. "Believe what you want. I'm done with you both." She turned to leave, but Evelyn burst in, her face twisted with panic. "You told him?" she hissed. "Jenny, if you breathe a word, I'll destroy you," Jenny laughed, cold and sharp. "Destroy me? You're already ruined, Evelyn. The whole town knows what you are." She pushed past, her heart alight with triumph. Leonard's gaze darted between them, his mind spiraling. Jenny knew the seed of doubt would fester, driving a wedge between her enemies. The committee's verdict came days later. Leonard was fired, his moral failings deemed unforgivable. The town's gossip reached a fever pitch, neighbors shunning him and Evelyn. Jenny packed her belongings, and her college acceptance letter was a beacon of hope. But before she boarded the train to the capital, she sent Leonard a final gift, a medical report, forged with care, stating he was infertile. It was a half-truth, unconfirmed, but enough to shatter his trust in Evelyn. She imagined his rage, his confrontation with Evelyn over Ben's parentage, and chaos. As Jenny prepared to leave, news trickled through the town's gossip network. Leonard, driven mad by the revelation, had confronted Evelyn in a drunken fury. Believing Ben was another man's son, he'd attacked her, his jealousy erupting into violence. The act ended in tragedy. Evelyn's body, dismembered, was found in their apartment. Leonard was arrested, convicted of intentional homicide, and faced execution. Jenny felt no sorrow, only a cold satisfaction. Her letter had lit the final spark, their deceit consuming them. With her bags packed, she stepped toward the station, the factory whistle a fading echo, her heart free at last. Jenny Yang stood on the bustling campus of her university in the capital, the crisp autumn wind of 1978 swirling golden leaves around her feet. The 1970s city hummed with life, street vendors hawking steamed buns, students chattering about lectures, and the distant clatter of trams. Once heavy with the scars of betrayal, her heart felt light, unburdened. Reborn with the truth of Leonard and Evelyn's deception, she had dismantled their world, securing her savings, igniting a public scandal, passing the college exam for herself, and exposing their lies with a final, devastating blow, revealing Ben's true parentage and Leonard's infertility. Their downfall was complete, but this moment was hers alone under the open sky. Jenny was free and living for herself for the first time in 2 lifetimes. The train ride from the factory town had been a quiet triumph, her college acceptance letter clutched tightly, symbolizing her hard-won escape. She'd left behind a city ablaze with gossip. Leonard, convicted of murdering Evelyn in a jealous rage over Ben's paternity, faced execution. Evelyn, the cunning rival who'd also been reborn, was gone, her schemes buried in the wreckage of her lies. Ben, their disabled son, faded into obscurity, neglected by a community that scorned his parents. Jenny felt no pity. Her past life's devotion to Ben had been repaid with cruelty, his sneering face a memory she'd shed. Her revenge wasn't driven by cruelty, but by necessity, a severance of chains forged in love and betrayal. On campus, Jenny found a new rhythm. The lecture halls, with their chalk-dusted boards and eager debates, sparked a passion she'd buried in her past life. She dreamed of becoming a teacher, shaping young minds with the knowledge she'd fought to reclaim. Her nights in the bookstore, poring over textbooks, had kindled this ambition, and now it burned bright. She made friends, Li Hua, a sharp-witted literature major who shared her love of poetry, and Wei, a quiet science student who offered her tea during late study sessions. Their laughter, their shared dreams, filled a void Jenny hadn't known existed. In her past life, she'd lived for Leonard, her world narrowed to his needs. Now, she was building a life of her own, yet the scars remained. Walking through the campus, she sometimes glanced over her shoulder, half expecting Leonard's shadow or Evelyn's calculating gaze. The pain of her past life, 50 years as a pawn, mocked as a mistress, lingered in quiet moments. But it no longer defined her. She'd spent one lifetime in chains of love, another breaking free through revenge. Standing beneath a canopy of autumn leaves, she was neither the naive girl who believed in Leonard's lies, nor the bitter woman who'd burned their world. She was Jenny Yang, a woman with dreams, friends, and a future she'd carved herself. News from the factory town reached her through letters from old neighbors, their words tinged with awe and pity. Leonard's execution had been swift, and the city was shocked by his descent into violence. He went mad, one letter read, screaming about Evelyn's betrayal, Ben's actual father. The coworker Jenny had suspected, a sharp-featured man from Evelyn's past, had vanished years ago, leaving only whispers. Now in a state orphanage, Ben was a footnote in the town's gossip, his cruelty unformed but his fate sealed by his parents' sins. Jenny read these updates with detachment, her heart no longer tethered to their fate. She'd sought liberation, not vengeance, and she'd won it. Jenny pinned her acceptance letter in her dorm to a corkboard, a reminder of her triumph. Beside it, she taped a poem Lihua had shared, its lines about rising from ashes resonating deeply. She studied late into the night, her desk piled with books, her mind alive with ideas. She wanted to teach, inspire, and give others the chance she'd nearly lost. Her parents, supported by the money she'd sent, wrote letters of pride, their words a balm to her soul. "You've done right by us," her mother wrote. "Live for yourself now." Jenny smiled, her eyes tracing the words. She would. As the sun set, painting the campus in hues of gold, Jenny stepped outside, the wind carrying the scent of roasted chestnuts. She closed her eyes, the factory town's weight a distant memory. 2 lifetimes, one of love, one of revenge, had forged her strength. The scars, visible and not, were hers to carry, but they no longer bound her. With her head held high, Jenny walked toward her next class, her heart full of peace. She was no longer defined by Leonard, Evelyn, or their lies. She was Jenny Yang, a woman reborn, her future wide open, her life finally her own.